Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Deb Sofield, and you're listening to my Saturday radio show called Encouragement for Your Life. So many of you know that the title is also part of a book series that I have, volume 1 through 3, and they're available on Amazon.com. In our time together, I'm going to ask that you set aside a few minutes of your Saturday to focus on you, your family, your job, and your future. Most of you know by now, I'm an executive speech and corporate presentations coach. I'm also a national speaker. I help people just like you learn to make better presentations. If you happen to be a part of an organization that has conferences across America or anywhere in the world, I would love to be considered as a keynote speaker or breakout session. You can learn more at debsofield.com. I've got a number of books on the market besides Encouragement for Your Life. My book, Speak Without Fear and Perfecting Your Platform, are both on Amazon and Audible if you'd like to listen. I've got a great message today, and I'm going to go back to a theme that I love, and it's this. Our friend, no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. I'm Deb Sofield. Thanks for joining me. Stay tuned for the next half hour. Let's get started with today's show. I freely admit this might be my favorite topic, and that's the idea of kindness. So I want to talk a little bit about it today, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me that the world at this very moment could use a bit more kindness. Why? Well, because kindness really matters today, tomorrow, and the next day. I love the quote by Aesop from Aesop's Fables that no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. Not only because it's true, but also because it has a realistic side to it that accepts that even a small gesture is of great value in our world. I think so many times we think we have to do great big things to be accepted, acknowledged, or even loved. But the reality is, any act of kindness in our world today would simply be a drink of cold water on a hot day, a time of refreshment in a world that's empty. And you know, what I think is probably the best part is, friends, you can do it. Yeah, you. In all your hustle and hurry in life, you can still be the flame that lights the fire that warms the soul. I love the idea of hospitality, and I practice it as best I can because I think it's important to show kindness and goodness to others. You know, here in the South, we are often commended for our hospitality towards others. I love the old Southern saying, you've never met a stranger, just friends we haven't met yet. It's that kind of kindness and that hospitality that gives us a great reputation for graciousness, another one of my favorite topics. Because friends, in this world, man, we can use a lot more of each. In our time today, I want to focus on kindness. And I want to talk to you about you because, friends, you should be kind to you. I work with a lot of people from every walk of life, and there are those who seem to struggle with the idea of their personal worth, their personal value, their personal significance. I'm not sure if it's due to the work they do or the life they lead that makes them feel so empty and hollow, or if perhaps somewhere along the line they worked really hard to get ahead and they wore themselves out so much so that they're running on empty. And when it comes to understanding their self-value and worth, well, they're coming up short. Friend, if that's you today, may I ask that you consider slowing down enough to let your mind and body and soul and spirit catch up with you so you can take a break and heal and renew or revive your strength for the journey. That is the true basis of understanding, is for you to learn to be kind to you. You know, the Bible is very clear on this verse. Don't wear yourself out to get rich. Be wise enough to know when to quit. It's found in Proverbs 23:4. You may be saying, but Deb, why? I mean, we're all in it to get ahead, to make money, to provide for us and our families. Well, think about this. When all is said and done and your physical strength is spent, friend, if you've not put enough of your energy into building friendships, time with family, or simply taking care of yourself, the only person who is harmed is you. And you deserve more than that. Why? Because you have value. And please stop thinking that you don't. And certainly stop listening to those who don't build you up. I have to say, I'm hearing more and more from people who think that putting other people down is keeping them in their place and trying to keep them humble. And I just want to say, you're a nut. Stop doing that. Hang with people who build you up, who encourage you, who encourage you to be your very best. Listen, I know I say it all the time, but you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you were known before you ever came into being. And for that reason, you have a responsibility to take care of yourself because you have value. Your value only has to be measured internally and externally by you. It doesn't matter what anyone else sees it, thinks about it, or if they even care. The fact is, you can do things that others cannot because you've trained, you've worked, you've created. And in that act of bettering yourself, you've added value to your life and hopefully to the lives of others. And the good news is no one can take that away from you. Remember, you're not here by accident, no matter what your siblings say. No, you're here for a reason. And your life's work is to figure what that is and then do something about it. Now, I admit I'm not requiring you to do something big, although I hope you can, would, and would choose to do so. But really, what's needed in today's world is a simple understanding of the saying, no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted, especially when it comes from you. When I was working on the show, I came across another interesting point, and it's this. Did you know that any act of kindness towards yourself or others is a boost for your heart and mind? Yeah, your heart and mind. I have an article I'm going to share a little bit later about the health benefits of doing charitable acts of kindness. I think it's interesting that our bodies react in a wholesome way when we use our time, our mind, our money to do something good for others. I know that many people are weighed down under the heavy burden of life, or job, or family, or debt, or health. I get it. And a lot of people really struggle with really having the energy to do the job. But I want to remind you that no matter how you feel, because feelings can change, and you can change your feelings, you can still nurture the one light that should never go out. And that is the flickering flame of kindness that you show yourself and others. I also want to remind you, dear friend, that you are needed, and whether you believe me or not, you will be missed when you're gone. This past month, I've been talking about leaving a legacy that will stand the test of time. And recently, I did a show that said, if you want to leave a footprint, don't drag your feet. Make a discernible imprint that will not only be seen, but also be followed by others. Why, you may ask? Because, friend, your time on this earth is limited. One day you'll be gone. But my point is simply to give you hope and remind you that you will be missed when you're gone. The fact is that only you can make that happen. Only you can leave a legacy by building the relationships today that will leave a lasting memory for tomorrow. I work with people here and abroad and see that deep inside, so many people choose to live in what they say is the gray twilight of life, neither making an impression or certainly not making a difference. And I'm really concerned about that on a lot of levels. Probably the most important reason is if you don't value who you are, then you won't value what you can do for others. Friends, remember that no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. So today, let's take a realistic look at the life you're leading, and I want you to ask yourself, is this a life you want? And if that answer is not satisfactory to you, then you're going to have to be bold enough to make a change, to be kind to yourself first, so you can be the change, and then to others so they can see the change. Because please hear me, no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. And I believe deep inside you know that. I know you've heard this phrase before. All I'm asking is that starting today, that you dust it off, and let's live that statement out loud for others to see, feel, and hear. I'm Deb Sofield. This is Encouragement for Your Life. Stay tuned. I'm going to come right back after the break with ways that we can show kindness to others. Hi, I'm Deb Sofield. If you've ever needed help crafting a presentation for your job or your company, I can help. In today's world, you know how important it is to be able to speak and present well. I'm a national speaker and an executive speech and corporate presentations coach. I can help you craft your message for your success. I'd like to be on your team. I'd like to be your coach. Contact me through my website, debsofield.com. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Deb Sofield, and you're listening to Encouragement for Your Life. So, my theme today is one that I know I speak a lot about because I personally believe it, I try to act it out in my life, and I encourage others to do the same. And it's the quote that no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. I've come across a pretty interesting article by, I think it's Gladina McMahon, and she says this: why kindness matters and that it's good for you. So it starts by saying, loving kindness and compassion are the basis for wise, powerful, sometimes gentle, sometimes fierce actions that can really make a difference in our own lives and the lives of others. And that's a quote from Sharon Salzberg. What's interesting is that quote, according to the author, really covers the entire basis that anyone needs to know as to why kindness costs nothing, brings joy, does as much for the giver as the receiver, and can change society, bringing unexpected rewards. The author says, I've worked with all kinds of peoples, from celebrities and powerful to those whose daily life is filled with pain and struggle and not knowing where their next meal may come from or if there will be anyone to share it with. She says, money may give you choices, but it surely can't buy you happiness. And if we were honest, we would know this to be true. Otherwise, why are so many of the rich and powerful in and out of rehab centers, taking their own lives, and are often unbearable to be around? She gives a quote from Maya Angelou, who said, I've learned that people will forget what you say, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. You know, kindness can be a smile across a room to someone who feels maybe nervous and out of place. It only takes a couple minutes of your time to talk to the person who lives on your street that's invisible to everybody else. It can also be a practical helping hand or mentoring someone through college or maybe their career. In fact, the act of kindness, whether it's a smile, a word, or when you do something practical, is really about taking action. And when you do, something wonderful happens. Perhaps the hardest type of kindness is to be kind to yourself. Have you noticed how much more forgiving you are to others and yet so unforgiving to you? She says in psychology, we call this special person syndrome. It's as if it is okay for others, but why don't you see yourself as being special, as you are? Those who work together using their kindness to cooperate from the well-being of others really will help bring about major changes. Kindness does not mean you cannot fight in your corner and be assertive. That's not what we're talking about today. See, think about this. Even in nature, have you ever seen maybe a lion who protects her cubs or a wolf who protects her little animals? I mean, when you stop and think about this, it is programmed into our genes to protect those we love. Kindness, gratitude, and compassion are also good for your mental and physical health. Sonia Lubriski from the University of California has been able to demonstrate through her research that repeated acts of kindness, well, it makes you happier. Small random acts of kindness make you feel good about yourself. And those people who try this often find that they get something unexpected back in return. You find yourself gaining friends or getting an email one day from someone who remembers you and wants to offer you a job. You know, you may have forgotten the name of that person, but they haven't forgotten you. You also get a sense of personal satisfaction, which many describe as a greater gift than the act itself was for the other person. The happier you are, the better your immune system and your ability to withstand stress will be. She goes on to say that kindness is good for you emotionally and psychologically, and may be better than all the vitamins you and I take to keep ourselves healthy. One study stated that there was a strong relationship between the well-being, happiness, and health of people who are kind. There are many more studies that demonstrate this relationship, including the lowering of the rates of depression. And we can all admit that being kind, it's good for you and others. Catherine Ryan Hyde, in her book, Pay It Forward, wrote about the story of an unhappy schoolboy who decided to do a good deed for those he came into contact with, only asking that the person concerned did a good deed for someone else. The book was made into a movie, What No One Expected, was that people who read the book and saw the movie started doing the same thing. Perhaps the act of being kind, as in pay it forward, is conditional. But once the joys and rewards associated with this way of being are felt, they say it's like a welcome habit with benefits. Businesses have often found that being kind pays. You may be in business to make money, but friends, you make money from people. And many say that good customer care, has nothing to do with kindness, but that's not true. You and I do business with people we like and people who like us. If you could just encourage someone to smile, maybe say have a nice day, listen, you can help change the lives of others. Now, will it do it for everyone? Nah, probably not. But what it does is it sets you up for greater success. She says, the author does, I've read about businesses such as Disney World who made millions of dollars because in its recruiting practice, they focus on people who are kind and who find satisfaction in being kind and helping others. And she goes on to say, of course, that strategy works. Kindness, love, and compassion. Friends, that is what brings meaning to life. And I have to say, I, for one, am grateful for every gesture made towards me, and even more so for the gestures I've been able to give to others. I like that article. It's called Why Kindness Matters, and that it is good for you. I thought that was a positive enforcement. I've come across another one by Dr. David Hamilton, and his whole headline is really more about there is benefits to being kind. And so let's talk about what those benefits are today. He starts his article with a quote from Bob Hope. He says this, if you haven't any charity in your heart, you have the worst kind of heart trouble. Wow. When we think about side effects, the first thing that usually springs to mind are the side effects of maybe drugs or alcohol. But who would have thought that kindness has side effects too? Well, it does, and positive ones at that, according to this article. He goes on to say, of course, we should never do an act of kindness to gain from it. We should always be kind because it's the right thing to do. But friend, when we're kind, here are some of the side effects that come with it. The truth is, number one, kindness makes us happier. When we do something kind for someone else, we feel good. On a spiritual level, many people feel that this is because it's the right thing to do. And so we're tapping into something deep and profound inside us that says, this is who I am. On a biochemical level, it is believed that the good feeling we get is due from elevated levels of the brain's natural version of morphine. And he goes on to say, this can cause, in a sense, an elevated level of dopamine in the brain, so you naturally get a high, what they call a helper's high. So it's a positive no matter who you work with or who you give to. Number two, kindness gives us a healthier heart. Acts of kindness are often accompanied by emotional warmth, and emotional warmth produces the hormone oxytocin in the brain and throughout the body. They say that it plays a significant role in the cardiovascular system of the body because it releases a chemical called nitric oxide. Listen, I'm not a doctor, sorry folks, which expands the blood vessels. It reduces blood pressure. And so it becomes as a cardioprotective hormone for the heart because it not only lowers blood pressure, but they go on to say that even an act of kindness slows aging. Aging on a biochemical level is a combination of many things, but two culprits that speed the process are free radicals and inflammation, both of which can really make for an unhealthy body. But they say that this oxytocin, which we produce through emotional warmth, reduces levels of free radicals and inflammation within the cardiovascular system, and thus it slows the aging at its source. I will say it is fascinating when you go and do the science and read about it, a little bit more than I'm doing here today, but they have been able to pinpoint that kindness is good for your heart. They go on to talk about scientific journals and the vagus nerve and how it regulates the heart, controls inflammation. And what happens is once the body calms down, it makes everything better in the world, inside and out, when you think about the good you're doing for others. And the author goes on to say, kindness makes for better relationships. Listen, we all get this. We know that we like people who show kindness to us, and a lot of us feel good when we show kindness to others. It creates a bond, and sometimes that bond is so strong that for some, it's like you are wired for kindness. Now, for others who are listening today, if this is not within your wiring, let me encourage you to consider what it will take to make it so. I mean, the fact is, it's a hard world out there, my friends, and so many people feel disconnected. And if you and I were to do just one more thing, to show kindness in our words and our acts and our deeds, I believe we could help heal the world. The author ends by saying, kindness is contagious. When we're kind, we inspire others to be kind, and it actually creates a ripple effect that spreads outward to our friends' friends' friends. And they say to almost 3 degrees of separation. Just as a pebble creates waves when it's dropped into a pond, so kindness ripples outward, touching others' lives, inspiring kindness everywhere the wave goes. Fascinating study, New England Journal of Medicine said, there was a report that an anonymous 28-year-old person walked into a clinic and donated a kidney. It set off a pay-it-forward type of ripple effect where spouses or other family members of the recipients of the kidneys donated one of their own to someone in need. The domino effect has been reported over and over. It spanned the length and breadth of the United States. I believe the article ends where over 10 people received a new kidney as a consequence of one anonymous donor. Our friend, remember, no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. Let me close with an article I've edited called Kindness Matters from Janice Lundy. She says this, kindness transcends all boundaries and borders, permeates all walls and wounds. Kindness connects us no matter what we believe, where we live, how we even earn a living. Kindness is a common language we speak as human beings. A smile, a generous gesture, an act of caring transcends all of our differences. Kindness is a key to a life well lived. Our friend, remember, kindness matters. Do you consider yourself to be a kind person? Do you generally respond well to people you meet on a day-to-day basis? Are you open and receptive, hospitable, especially when others don't seem so kind themselves? The author says these are important questions to ask ourselves, especially with the state of the world as it is. When communities and families are struggling to maintain calmness, it's easy to lose focus and move away from kindness. We become self-absorbed, stressed, overwhelmed, worried, or fearful. Our thought in any number of situations may be, hey, what about me? But the truth is, in taking the focus off ourselves and placing it on the well-being of others, well, it can shift our preoccupation with our own pain and troubles. Thinking of another first and how we might enhance their day, well, it can brighten our own. She goes on to say, the fact is, the focus is not on making yourself feel better, although that's important. Kindness is the cure for what ails all of us. And then she goes on to give ways we can be more kind and how we can keep our hearts open to one another and keep the well-being of others in the forefront of our thoughts. Number 1, she says, notice when you say I. Folks, it's not about you, it's about others. And then take a look at people around you. I mean, really look at them. Have eye contact, engage them with a friendly nod or at least a kind word. And then she says, random acts of kindness. If we'll just slow down and notice people, we many times will feel compelled to offer kindness because there's something inside of us will know what they need. Friends, sometimes all you have to do is speak words of kindness into the world for others. You hold a door open for somebody, and then you say thank you. Or when someone holds it for you, you offer someone your parking space instead of rushing into one so quickly. You put a little change in a parking meter to help somebody. You might offer to help somebody pay for their groceries. I mean, the list is endless. Kindness in your own way will not only change your life, but those around you. I'm going to end with the words of Mother Teresa. Let no one ever come to you without leaving better and happier. Be the living expression of God. Kindness in your face, kindness in your eyes, kindness in your smile. Kindness matters. In fact, in the grand scheme of life, it may be the only thing that does. So friend, let's go ahead and live by our words today, that no act of kindness, however small, is ever wasted. And as I close out today's show, I want to leave you with a couple more quotes that I love. Probably the one that is my life quote is from Mark Twain. Kindness is a language which the deaf can hear and the blind can see. Wow, I love that. And then Paul Coho says, the world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. And Coco Chanel, you live but once. You might as well be amusing. And I'll add to that, you might as well be kind, because you give others the chance to shine when you give them the light in which to stand. I'm Deb Sofield. You've been listening to Encouragement for Your Life. Thanks for listening. Please join me next week. Same time, same place. Have a good one, everybody.